Good morning, friends and fellow traders. This is Doug Campbell with Right Way Options, and this is the Morning Market Prep video for March 25th, 2024. Well, how about we take a look at what happened overnight here before we dig into the charts. First off, Asian markets, mostly lower last night. Some issues we had. Malaysia and Singapore reporting inflation numbers higher than expected, creating a little bit of selling overnight. And now we have only the Australian market was a little bit higher. Everything else was down pretty strongly, with Nikkei suffering the most, down 474 points. If we take a look at European markets this morning, European markets are lower this morning mostly, but in a rather modest manner. Nothing major going on there, just a slightly lower push here this morning. And then if we take a look at futures here in the United States, they are also lower across the board this morning, but they have already started to improve just a little bit. We've been seeing a lot of that normally here, where first thing in the morning they start trying to push things back up. So let's keep a close eye on that. But right now they are remaining lower. If we take a look at oil this morning, oil slightly higher here this morning, just ever so slightly, based on those Russian attacks in Ukraine, targeting, there's a pretty big attack on Sunday, targeting oil infrastructure, targeting refineries, all kinds of things going on there. So there is a little bit of concern, I should say, as the geopolitical risk ramp up here. So watch that carefully. But oil is up 53 cents at 81.16 a barrel, and Brent is up 50 cents at 85.93 a barrel. Natural gas being lower this morning by a nickel. If we take a look at our bonds this morning, our bonds just ever so slightly higher. They're trying to creep up just a little bit, with the 2-year bond at 4.62 this morning. The 10-year bond is at 4.23, and the 30-year bond is at 4.40. So we'll want to be keeping an eye on those here this morning. Gold this morning is also higher. Gold, silver, commodities, copper, palladium, all of those just slightly higher here this morning, as are the cryptos. Bitcoin surging over 1,000 points higher this morning. So keep an eye on those, as we might be seeing just a little bit of a weakening of the dollar. So what does all that mean for today? Well, how about we settle in? Let's buckle up. Let's get ready for the Monday edition of the Morning Market Prep video. Good morning once again, everyone, and thank you so much for being here. Very much appreciate it. Hey, just a reminder to everyone, if you haven't heard this yet, I guess, is that we have a short week this week. Friday is Good Friday. The market will be closed, so kind of plan your trading accordingly. With just a shortened week, you never know what can happen. And what's interesting is we have a big inflation data number coming out on Friday, of course, while the market's closed. So that makes the following Monday could be anything possible. But first off, let's take a look at these charts and see if we can gain a little information about how we may want to approach the market for today. Well, as you remember, on Friday, I mentioned that possibility if we did pull back, watch for that gap to potentially be filled. That certainly did come into play, but we didn't quite make it all the way back down here to this price support. We got this little bit of bearishness here this morning. So if those bears can find inspiration today to push lower, then we would look at this area right here to see whether or not they could push down through that area of support. Now, breaking down through there could raise a tiny little bit of concern in the market, and we'll want to keep an eye on that. If we do push down, there's a little bit of price support right in there that we might catch on and see if we can hold in that area. And breaking down below that area, I'm going to suggest that possibility that we could move all the way back down into this area of price support. Now, if the bulls find inspiration here today, then a test down in here and bounce off of there would seem pretty likely, and that could actually create a little higher low. That higher low in the market could certainly inspire those bulls to come back in and try to press us back to the upside. So let's keep a close eye on the diamonds here today. And of course, if they can break back through, well, we'd be looking at these resistance levels in the chart right there at the top of that candle, filling the gap, and then of course coming all the way back up here to test for a breakout of all-time highs. Our SPY, well, it was probably the best supported index on Friday as we pulled back just ever so slightly here in the SPY. So we're well above this price support yet. Notice that this morning, a little bit of a bearish push. We may fill that gap here in the chart, and if the bears were to continue to push and break this on back down, we'd probably come back down into this level of price support. Now, breaking this level where we might get a little bit of fear come into the market. If that level were to break, there is some price support in here that could catch us. So watch that close. If the bulls find that inspiration here today, and we're able to hold either above or come even into this and find that support, wherever it is, they could certainly bounce up off of there. And there's really no reason to believe that that's not possible the way the market has been acting, particularly on the tech side. However, we did get some news this morning that the EU now has dropped a probe into Apple, Meta, and Google. So there are more attacks coming in on the big tech giants on basis of monopolies and all kinds of things in there. So watch that carefully here on the SPY. If those bulls find that inspiration and push up, you can really see that possibility that we could push right back up, test the high of that candle, pushing on through into here, and then blue sky highs above. If we look at our QQQ had a bit of a rough day on Friday, popping up and then selling back off, and you can see we came to rest right here on this support area of the chart. Now, we haven't quite dropped all the way through to fill this gap, but you can see this morning a little bit of pressure here in the pre-market, maybe pushing us that direction where we might fill this gap. And if we do, then that possibility that we can continue to sink maybe down to test this little price support here in the chart. So watch carefully there if those bears were really to gain some energy. Now, it's not a hard thing to see that possibility that we could also hold this area price support. Start off with a little bit of bearishness, immediately reverse back to the upside. And if we do, then start pushing up and we can test the wick of that little candle there on Friday, and then we're back up here testing breakout highs and blue skies above. Of course, that would create a little higher low in here, and every reason to believe the way tech has been responding that they could easily push us right on through to the upside. And then last but not least, our Russell had a little bit of a rough day on Friday. We had ran up there and tested that resistance again, took a look at it anyway, and then reversed, and then put in a bearish engulfing candle, filling the gap. Now, we haven't come all the way back down in here to test some support yet in the chart, but we certainly could pretty easily here this morning with a little bit of a bearish push. So if the bears were to find inspiration here today, push down into here, holding that area is going to be pretty important, because if that doesn't hold, then we're likely to drift down to this bigger area of price support in the chart. If the bulls find inspiration here today and they find any kind of support, any kind of buying above this area in the chart, then we'd start pushing back up, and we might see if we can test the high of that candle and then see if we can fill the gap once again back up here to the upside. And then of course we're looking at a test up here and then maybe pushing right on through to retest that resistance, and that is a big resistance in the chart. A breakthrough up there could be significant here in the Russell, so watch carefully for that. Now if we take a look at our VIX, we saw our VIX push down on Friday, and then by the end of the day push back up here a little bit. So we've got a couple of double hammers down here on the bottom, maybe showing us that possibility that fear is creeping up just a little tiny bit, but I don't know that it's anything to worry about significantly just yet, because we have this trend that was in here and we broke it significantly last Wednesday, and I don't see any reason to get majorly fearful here just yet. If we rally up and hit that as resistance and fail, well, that just puts us into the downtrend here. If we were to break through up here and then hold, well, maybe that would be a reason to put in a little fear here in the market. But right now, if you look at the way the market is trading, no one is fearful. Now, that always makes me a little bit nervous. You know, Warren Buffett tends to say you want to be fearful when the market is exuberant. I think we're pretty exuberant right now, so we could be reaching that period of time where we can get that little bit of a pullback here in the market. But yeah, watch that carefully. If we take a look at our T2122, our T2122 indicator, well, we were pushed up here into that bearish reversal zone, and then on Friday pushing that back down rather significantly, as you can see. Pretty strong selling coming on Friday, pushing this down, but we didn't come all the way back down here even to middle of range. So if the bulls find inspiration here today, there's every reason to believe, the way we have been acting, that we could just pop right back up here in that chart. So if the bulls get inspired, look for that little push. If the bears get inspired, well, a push down that would break this 50% area might send us on down into this zone of the chart. Now, we haven't been all the way down here for a long time, so we'll want to be watching for that possibility if those bears were to engage on anything. And, you know, worries about inflation may be one of those things, and that core PCE number coming up on Friday, that we'll talk about that in just a minute. Then if we take a look at our T2108, percentage of stocks above the 40-day moving average, we were lower on the day, but I don't see any problem here. As you can see, we held on to support. If we use this as trend, whoops, I didn't draw that line very straight. So we held on to support, we held on to trend. I don't see anything bad here just yet. Follow through that breaks down through these support and trend areas, that of course would raise some concern. And as we push back down toward that 50% area, that would raise some concern in the market. And T2107, well, T2107, no big worries here. We are in kind of a frothy area here, but notice that we pushed back, held above support. We're holding above trend in here. So although we pulled back on Friday, it was a very, very controlled sell-off on Friday. So I don't see any major concern in this just yet. We could certainly catch this area of support, and if the bulls find inspiration, well, we're back up here pushing to test these resistance highs in the chart. So keep a close eye on that. And then if we take a look at our T2101, well, interesting enough, T2101 saw that breadth increase, and I'm beginning to wonder if there wasn't a little bit more of the corporate buyback. I think as of today, about 65% of the stocks are in their blackout period. By next week, it's over 80% of the stocks are in that blackout period. So it's possible we could have some corporate buyback in there, spiking that up. But it's interesting that we spiked up on a bearish wave, meaning that we saw more selling coming in. So what we don't want to see is we don't want to see this continuing to rise if the bears find that inspiration to keep pushing up. What we do have to notice here is that big break of a downtrend here all of a sudden pushing up. So let's watch that carefully here on this move in the chart. Let's take a look at our economic calendar here for today. Now, our economic calendar, if we take a look at that, today is pretty light on the calendar. We're going to have Bostic speaking this morning. We've got Chicago Fed national activity, which is not likely to move the market much, if at all. New home sales would probably be the most likely, and then we've got Dallas Fed manufacturing, Cook, and some bond auctions to be thinking about, a 2-year in there. If we take a look, they're expecting new home sales to come in a little bit higher at 675. They were 661 prior, so a little bit of improvement there on new home sales is what the consensus is looking for. Now, as we look forward into the rest of the week, we've got some big numbers coming in here that are market moving. We've got durable goods, we've got a Case-Shiller, we've got consumer confidence, and we've got Richmond Fed. There's going to be some bond auctions here as well. As you can see on Wednesday, we're going to have our normal mortgage applications, petroleum oil status, so pretty light day here, but we have some bond auctions to be thinking about, as well as Waller speaking. We're going to be looking at the GDP number here on Thursday, our final trading day of the week. So keep an eye on that GDP number. We know it could be market moving. Then, of course, jobless claims looking on through. We've got corporate profits, Chicago PMI, consumer sentiment, pending home sales, petroleum status. Later on down here, there'll be the Fed balance sheet. And if we take a look at Friday, well, my goodness, on Friday, this is going to be the interesting thing. The market will be closed, and yet we're going to get international trading goods, and then we're going to get the core PCE number here in the morning on Friday. So with the market being closed, there is that major possibility that the following Monday could be pretty wild. So we'll want to watch that carefully. Retail inventories, wholesale inventories, and Jerome Powell will be speaking on Good Friday as well. So we'll want to be keeping an eye on that. Let's take a look at our earnings calendar here for today. In our earnings calendar, well, there isn't anything going on. There are some earnings out there, but they're all so small cap, and nothing that's notable here for today on the earnings calendar. So nothing to really cover there. Let's take a look at some stocks that could be setting up for today, however. But before we do that, everyone, if this is the first time you've seen these videos, if you could please click that subscribe button on YouTube, and also click that bell icon when it pops up so you'll be notified every time I post a video. And if you find these videos to be useful or helpful, if you could do me that favor, and that would be click that thumbs up button and leave a brief comment. You know, I value those comments so much, and as most of you know, I try to answer them each and every day because I appreciate the time that it takes to do that, and I want to acknowledge that and also answer questions that folks might have on the video. So thank you so much for everyone who does take the time. It means the world to me. And thank you so much to everyone who shares these videos out there on your social media feed. And then just a big shout out to everyone who supports the channel with a Buy Me a Coffee link just below the title of the video. You'll see that link. Thank you very much. You guys are very, very kind. I truly appreciate it. Let's take a look at a few stocks that could be setting up for today. But remember, guys, these are not recommendations to buy or sell any security. Make sure you follow your own due diligence, follow your risk tolerance rules. You should never, ever blindly follow anyone else's trade idea. Well, first off, if we take a look this morning, we've got UUP. Big old candle up here, shooting star top out of price resistance on Friday in that, with the dollar pulling back, and you can see it's trying to move just ever so slightly here this morning, trying to gap up just a little tiny bit, but we're actually seeing gold, silver, those kind of things move up today. So keep a close eye on gold. Now gold is in an interesting pattern. We had last couple of days strong pullback, and I still think there's a pretty good chance that this is going to have to rest for a while, maybe back to trend. But if it can hold support in this chart, hold that trend, then there's every reason to believe that we could start pushing back up in that that chart. Let's take a look at silver. Silver also pulling back here the last couple of days. Now that broke through some resistance up here on Thursday and then reversed pretty hard. I think there's a chance we could get a little bit range bound here on silver for just a little bit, maybe rest in this area. Now if it breaks this support, then I would suggest it's going to come back a little bit harder to see whether or not we can test that trend in the chart. But if it can hold up here, I'd keep a close eye on that overall. Take a look at palladium. It's pulled back, trying to hold on to this area of trend and a pretty big area of price support in the chart. I'd watch that closely. Notice it's holding above its 50-day moving average, and our short-term moving averages are crossing up through that area of the chart. You can see crossing up, trying to provide a little bit of support in that area. I think I'd keep an eye on palladium. If the buyers do step up in here, it could hold in this area and start moving back to the upside. Speaking of other things being affected by the dollar, take a look at soybeans. Soybeans had a good hard pullback on Friday, still in that area of the trend and trying to hold the price support in the chart. I'd keep an eye on that. Notice that 50-day moving average. We're in that pattern that we call the rounded bottom breakout, and as we come back into this trend, look at this opportunity. Short-term moving averages pushing up, providing a little bit of price support in there underneath that 50. Look for that opportunity that might come back up in here. It all depends on what happens in that dollar and those bond yields, so watch that closely here. Pretty interesting chart overall, the way that has been performing. Let's take a look at a few other areas in this dollar sensitive market. Take a look at Altria. Now Altria had been just going like a rocket to the upside, and then man, just got slammed down. You can see this morning also in the pre-market getting quite a little bit of volatility in it. On this pullback, coming back hard. So watch this area right in here. You can see there's a little bit of price support right through this area of the chart, and after rising so strongly, if we were to hold in this area, hold into that support area, and then wait for this to set on up for the next upside move, keep an eye on that one. Philip Morris also had just a big strong pullback. We were pushing up here to see if we could break that downtrend, and then just totally lost it, pushing this back strongly to the downside. Now other charts that you know I've been talking about here in the market, TEVA finally got its move, broke up through this resistance in the chart. Now that we're up through here, if it can continue to extend, great. If it has to rest, come back, test this area of price support, keep an eye on that, because if it does that, we establish the upside trend. Notice the trend here, we've kind of slipped it a little bit, and we could reestablish that upside trend here on TEVA. I would keep an eye on that. Taking a look at BMY. Now BMY is one that I'm holding, looking for that longer term position in here, and so far pretty strong pullback in here, a little bit more than I was hoping to see. If it can hold this support in here though, I think I'm okay with it. What I'm looking at here on this weekly, as you can see, that possibility that we could be forming that weekly inverted head and shoulders pattern. So I'm still waiting on that to see if that can come around here in the chart. Notice that we're still holding above our 50-day moving average. It got a little carried away, and that's one of the things we've been seeing here in the market. Anything starts to move and then we chase it to no end, and get it way too inflated, and then it has to pull back pretty strongly. So keep an eye on BMY here. here, still potentially setting up in that chart. If we take a look at CVS, I mentioned this last week, nice break of this wedge here to the upside. And as you can see, pushing on up, and we've got this nice little resting pattern starting to happen here. If that were to rest back into this trend, then I'd be looking for that next opportunity here for CVS to the upside. Keep a close eye on that. Looking pretty good overall. BKNG broke above this downtrend here in the chart, pushed on through that. We've been seeing a lot of this pattern here lately where we start up and then we whipsaw all the way back down and then we just tear it up to the upside all of a sudden. So we've been seeing a lot of that pattern, but one of the things we'll have to watch here on BKNG, this resistance area here in the chart, if it rests right along that area and holds, then every reason to believe that we could reestablish an upside trend here in BKNG and start pushing that higher. So I'd keep a close eye on that. So you guys know I've been talking about Tractor Supply here for quite a while, really since down in here on this alert that I had, and just talking about it over and over and over. And you can see Tractor Supply has done a pretty good job. Pulled back a little bit there on Friday. And I would expect a little bit of rest now because we're coming close to that upside in the channel. So watch that carefully for a potential little bit of a rest. We can pull back into here, see if we can test some of these support levels in the chart, back down here along trend or channel, and then look for your next upside opportunity in Tractor Supply. Walmart could be setting up as well. Walmart has rested out here toward the trend. I would watch that carefully. If Walmart could catch a bid here a little bit and push right on through, certainly does look like a possibility that that could happen. And speaking of that, you could also take a look at Target resting back here toward the trend. We've had a little bumping along here, whipping in this range, but I think that possibility that we might be settling out some of that volatility here, and that opportunity we could push on through to the upside there, and Target certainly looks like a possibility there, so I would watch that closely. Take a look at URI, United Rentals. URI, nice little swing here, little cup being formed in that chart. If this were to rest out here, every reason to believe that that could push on higher as well. United Rentals, one to be watching overall. Now, for some places that we've got a little bit of trouble here in the market, and might be in tech. Apple getting hit with that Justice Department lawsuit, and even though a lot of the analysts say, no, stick with Apple, there's nothing wrong here, keep buying Apple. Boy, that's a kind of a bold statement when you look at this chart. This is not a bullish chart at the moment, and we broke a pretty substantial level of price support here on Wednesday. So we'll want to watch that carefully. And now with the EU opening another probe into Apple, that possibility that this failure could continue on lower does look like a reasonable thought. Now, pushing down, there's a little bit of price support right in here that we can catch. But below that, it could move pretty hard to the downside. So watch carefully here on Apple, despite the fact that Kramer and everybody's coming out, oh, Apple's superstar, it can't go down. Well, I don't know. The way that chart is looking, and if I look at that at a weekly, there isn't anything about that chart that's bullish at the moment. So be very, very careful here, trying to assume Apple has reached a bottom with all of the pressure that we're getting here on some of these government agencies. Now, that being said, we take a look at Google, and Google was in a major problem as well, and Google completely responded back higher. Remember, we had this big gap up on Apple because, Google, because Apple was going to include that they were going to include their Gemini, their AI, on the iPhones. So really surged back up here. So I've got it in looking at this chart, breaking this downtrend. If this holds this support up in here, well, then there's every reason to believe we could resume and we could retest these highs here in Google. So keep an eye on that in the chart. AMD continues to slide, even though we continue to see analyst after analyst talking this up, saying, oh, it's going to be great, it's going to be awesome. Well, we're slipping here just a little bit. We may be wearing out a little bit on this AI trade because we're so elevated. Breaking back down below this area here, not the best of signs unless it can quickly recover it and hold it as a higher low. But I don't think there's any particular major worry here. Just to push back down into this area of price support looks like a possibility in that chart, so watch that close as we move forward. Boy, you don't see that problem here in Microsoft. However, Microsoft pulling back just a little bit, but in a very bullish pattern, breaking through up here in that resistance. So a little resting pullback in here sets up that opportunity that Microsoft may find those buyers and just continue to push on up here in that chart. So watch that one closely. Take a look at IBM. IBM slipping here just a little bit. We've got maybe a little bit of a lower high starting to show up in that chart. So here IBM looking like that possibility we could slip this support. Now, I'm not saying we will, but watch that carefully here. That little lower high gives me a little concern, and I have some major concern here on Intel this morning. Yikes. Intel this morning has consolidated over here underneath this resistance in the chart. That looks like we're going to fall through there in the pre-market. Intel looking lower here. So we got a little bit of hint that the big tech run-up may be starting to lose a little shine. So be kind of careful here in some of those charts. So with that, everyone, hey, I want to wish you all a fantastic day. I want to wish you great results in your trading. Thank you so much for being here. Remember, we've got a short week. We've got a lot of data coming our way. So be prepared for just about anything. Have an awesome, awesome day, and I'll see you right back here bright and early Tuesday morning. Take care, everyone.